We appear to all be here.
We are recording now.
I call this regular meeting of the Carrollton-Farmers Branch ISD Board of Trustees to order at 7:06 p.m. on May 7th, 2020. This meeting is being held virtually via WebEx due to the COVID-19 pandemic. As a district, we dedicate all our efforts and resources to our goal of high achievement for each student. The board uses this goal to guide all deliberations, decisions, and actions. You will get to see all deliberations, decisions, and actions of the board in open session, with the exception of some items which may be discussed in a closed session as stipulated in the Texas Government Code, Section 551, commonly known as the Open Meetings Law. These items typically deal with personnel matters, consultation with our attorney, and real estate. For the record, the board members present are Sarah Herbachik, John Matthews, Sally Derrick, Nancy Klein, Randy Shackman, and Guillermo Ramos. We constitute a quorum and may conduct business on behalf of the district. Ladies and gentlemen, before moving on to the next agenda item, I'd like to remind you that the board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so during agenda item number 3, audience for guests. The board addresses agenda item number 3. Further instructions will be given. At this time, we're at agenda item number 2, special presentations and recognitions. Our update from the PTA will be read by Ms. Dawn Parnell.
Our PTAs in the district are no different. Our last council PTA delegate meeting will be held on Saturday, May 16th at an updated time of 10:30 a.m. In addition to our regular business, we will also be hosting We'll be hosting virtual trainings from May 22nd through 29th for our newly elected local officers. Registration opportunities will be available shortly. I would like to recognize the following schools for achieving the XOXO membership award from the Texas PTA, and this is for sharing the love of PTA with 14 new members in the month of February. Those schools are Blair Elementary, Early College High School, and Newman Smith High School. As our lifetime membership awards ceremony was canceled, we're now moving the celebration online. We will be highlighting all of our local award recipients on our social media channels, so be sure to turn in on your digital devices to celebrate all the wonderful PTA advocates in our district. CFB Council PTA would like to express our appreciation to all the local PTA leaders that have provided countless volunteer hours. They continue to make a difference in our schools and for our students every single day. And finally, to our educators, administrators, and CFB leaders, we see the work you are doing to make sure that our children are fed, that they're educated, and that they're healthy. And we are so grateful for the continued dedication you have for high achievement for each student during these very challenging times. And that concludes the PTA report.
Thank you, Ms. Parnell, for reading the report from PTA President Meredith Watson. Our next item is 2B, Superintendent Report. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Klein. We have a number of items we're going to report tonight under the Superintendent Report. I'll go over a few of the events and give you an update, and then Brian Mersch will talk about food service, job fair, then Dr. West will come in and talk about staff development virtually, and then we're going to follow up with the 3 chiefs. So Ms. Machayo, Ms. De La Rosa, and Dr. Hamlin will speak on our journey through the closure. The first thing I want to talk about is what are we doing as we're still closed? We're now in week 8 or week 9, depending on what district that we're in. And through this, as you know, we will be closed for the remainder of the school year. So what are we doing for Teacher of the Year? On May 12th, we're going to have a virtual Teacher of the Year. I hope that you'll be able to participate in that function. And we're going to also have a retirement ceremony that's going to be virtually, and we're working on that now. I want to give a big shout out to our communications team. They've done such an exceptional job of of planning and getting this information together and trying to do everything that we possibly can to still highlight our teachers and our retirees during this this time of closure. The next thing is graduation. What is graduation going to look like? How are we going to move forward? As you've been told, the Texas Motor Speedway is going to host us on May 30th. What we're going to do is we're going to have all 5 high schools, including Early College High School, participate in this ceremony. We've already had it approved by the Commissioner of Education and by Judge Eads. Again, this is in Denton County. You have to talk, or we should be talking to our judges per county to walk through this. So the high school principals, Dr. Hamlin and Ms. Parnell met Mr. De La Rosa on Tuesday to walk through the first step of what is the graduation going to look like. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to have the graduates. They're going to come in one car and they're going to veer to the left, and then the parents are going to be in a separate car and they're going to be in a totally separate area in the pit, and they can then view the ceremonies on Big Hoss. We'll have all of the diagrams. We're going to have the passes. We're going to have all of the information ready to go in the next 2 weeks. We, meaning the principals, Dr. Hamlin, Ms. Purnell, and I, are going to go back to Texas Motor Speedway next Friday to do another walkthrough with all the districts that are going to be participating. The one thing that a lot of parents have asked about is, well, can we do this, X, Y, and Z? And the answer is no. All districts are going to do the exact same thing. It's all going to be hosted by Texas Motor Speedway, and that process that's going to be will be implemented. It's going to be for all the districts that are doing it. It's not going to just be what CFB is doing. It's not going to be just what Louisville or Denton, et cetera. We're all going to have the same exact format through that process. One of the good things is that we're one of the last graduations. So where they're going to start having graduations, I believe the first one's May 18th, if I'm not mistaken, and ours is May 30th. So they're going to go through quite a few different graduations, but just know that whenever we start on the 30th, board members, we're going to be there literally all day. So just be prepared for that. And as you know, we know this, and we're very well aware that May 30th, it may be hot, but we're putting everything that we possibly can. We want to provide the best opportunity for our children that have worked so hard that they can still have that face-to-face, they can still receive their diploma, they can still get a picture, and the parents can still in some way be a part of that process. And this so far has been the best option that we could come up with. On Tuesday, the governor provided clarification on his order. The commissioner also provided further guidance on his clarification in the sense of graduations, and we do fit in that process or in their guidelines for us to host this graduation. That cannot take place until after May 15th. That they did not change that date, and so we're in good shape for the May 30th piece. As we start to walk through a little bit about funding and what does that look like for the future, I'm going to send you a memo tomorrow and just walk through, where we are. As we talked last time, the cost of oil per barrels dropped even further. I filled up with gas Tuesday after the Motor Speedway for $1.13, and that's not boding well. That's not good news for funding for the future. So what is that going to look like? How are we going to, or what cuts will we see? Will they cut all of the additional House Bill 3 allocations like early literacy allotment, CCMR, those types of items? We just don't know. We keep asking the commissioner. Obviously, he doesn't know until legislation meets. And so, we're preparing for those items. We did start the process of hiring additional people. Part of that House Bill 3 allotment, an example, pre-K. One of the missions was to continue to increase our pre-K numbers as part of early literacy allotment. It's going to be part of the House Bill 3 goals that the board will see tonight. But that comes out of early literacy allotment. There's quite a few teachers there. Right now, we're serving about 1,178 children, and we're hoping to serve up to 1,600. Well, we need teachers and aides for that. Looking at CCMR and adding the deans of academic services at the high school, adding the counselors, adding early literacy coordinator, and I can just go on and on about the individuals. We hired all of these folks prior to the closure and then prior to oil. dropping. So, we're going to be okay. We do have some money set aside that can cover those additional hires. But right now we're looking at, where can we cut and how can we cut in the future? We talked today, and sadly enough, if you were a part of the 2011 cuts, unfortunately, this, meaning 2021, may be worse than the 2011 cuts. And so, we have to stay on top of it. We have to see where we are. We have to be looking at our budget with a microscope to see and make sure that all of those pieces are in place. So we're doing that as we speak. As we move into looking at next year, are we going to start the school year off in August just like we had in the past? And the answer is we just don't know. And you've probably heard that Dallas ISD made a few statements of here's option A, B, and C. We are meeting together as a group across the state of Texas to start talking about what are next steps and what are we going to look like in August. And again, if somebody asks the CFB today, we're going to say we just don't know. Met with the Commissioner of Education today, and we started looking at all the different options for calendars next year in the event that this virus comes back in waves, and they're saying that it will. How can we set up a new calendar that will assist us in weeks at a time that we can come back to school? So we looked at several calendars with the commissioner today. One thing that I did learn is that 86.6% of the districts are now talking about different options or what options are available for us as we move into August and September. And so that's majority of the districts across the state of Texas. One thing that they brought up today too is let's just look at teachers across the state, not CFB, but across the state of Texas, and 37% of the teachers are over the age of 55. So what will that look like for us if the virus comes back in waves? And so how are we going to make sure that we're supporting our staff as we move forward? So there's so many questions that are out there that we just don't have the answers to. We're working on it as we speak. We're making sure that CFB and other neighboring districts, we're talking the same language. We're looking at providing some of the similar calendars that are going to be out there that we don't have 25 million different calendars going across the state of Texas. So the consistency is what we're looking at, and then having conversations about funding. What is funding going to look like? How are we going to how is the federal government and the state government going to assist us? I'm going to send you two summaries tomorrow. One talking about E-rate and asking that the federal government will contribute another $4 billion to help with hotspots and technology. As we start to look at how many kids across the state of Texas and the nation are either participating or they cannot be contacted. And there was some numbers presented this week that out of 55 million children in the United States, 12 million are not being contacted or participating. And you can do the percent, it's over 20%. Across the state of Texas, it's very similar, it's 23%. And CFB, and you're going to hear about it in a moment with the chiefs, we're in a much better situation. But how can we get hotspots and how can we provide Wi-Fi for all children? And so we're talking through that on a federal level. And then on the state level, we're looking at missed school waiver. What does that mean? We get paid by ADA, average daily attendance. And so what if we go into the fall and all kids aren't at school? If we do a hybrid or if we do virtual, we're asking that will continue. What's happening right now, we'll move into 2021, that we'll still get credit for kids if they're enrolled in CFB. That way we continue to get the funding that's available. So that letter's going out tomorrow, and that's going to go out to the governor and the commissioner of education. As we start looking at our facilities, the governor, he released an order last week that stated that, certain businesses could open up, certain facilities can open up, etc. That's great, but we have to look at the county. And so being in Dallas County, we have to look at what Judge Jenkins and what his order states. And his order is effective through May 15th. And so as people start asking about, what can we do in the sense of facilities with X? Can we do this? Why? And in most cases, the answer is no. We're still under a county order, and that trumps whatever the governor has released. They're looking at it per pocket. And the reason being for that is that what may be happening in Abilene ISD may not be the same situation with cases and deaths that is in Dallas County. And so we've got to just make sure that that's being monitored and evaluated. So we're having to get permissions more to make sure that, you know, Clay Jenkins is on board with whatever his order is. And so we're getting legal advice as we walk through that. So as I send that information out, please know that I'm having to get permissions from not only the governor, not only the commissioner in some cases, but also the county. And last is Teacher Appreciation Week. And we just want to give a big shout out to all of our teachers and the phenomenal job that they're doing working with our kids each and every day. A big kudos to the board. They sent out an awesome video. Actually, they did better than the administrative video. And so we're gonna have to work on ourselves because theirs was so flawless. And also the city leaders are also doing the same thing as giving a shout out. So I appreciate all of those individuals that have contributed to make sure that we're telling our teachers how much we appreciate them, how much we love and appreciate all that they're doing, and how they were able to literally change how they have taught for so many years to meet the individual needs of our kids. So at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Mersch.
Thank you, Dr. Chapter. President Klein, Board of Trustees. I want to share my screen. Okay, it's my honor and pleasure to be able to give an update regarding the Grab and Go meal service and our job fair. We'll start out with a aerial video of our Grab and Go operation at Carrollton Elementary. It is our largest venue. We're serving approximately 21,000 meals per week. And you can see the cars lined up on Perry Road and on Pearl Street. They alternate coming on to Perry Road to come up to the front of Carrollton Elementary. Then they circle back around in front of the building. They're greeted by one of our teammates, and they circle back around over where you see the bus, where they're given their 10 meals per student, and then they pull out on the road and go on their way home. You might ask, how does this all happen? How do they get the food together? It's amazing because it's 20 school nutrition service team members who work 2 days a week to prepare over 52,000 meals. I can't say enough about how proud we are of the work that they're doing. So CFB meals, week 1 was 20,560. It more than doubled in week 2 to 43,460. Week 3 has been our peak so far at 56,400. It then dropped down to 51,910. Week 5, 52,910. Then this week at 52,620, and it appears that it's leveling off at about 52,000. Every week we learn, we get better, we're more efficient, more effective. And the really good news is we had some challenges early on. We're not having enough food, but the last 2 weeks, no one walked away or was turned away without food. Everyone received food. We are immensely proud of the team as they work tirelessly toward our collective goal of no child going hungry. And the team consists of security, warehouse, custodial, and this equates to 101 people. They serve as an inspiration to us all. Each Tuesday morning, 7 box trucks, 7 buses, 7 refrigerator trucks are loaded and then drive the 7 routes. Each route consists of 3 to 6 CFB schools. To date, we have served over 277,000 meals and over 333,000 pounds of food. Our job fair. This was the first ever virtual job fair for CFB. I'm going to go ahead and put up the last 2 years just as a comparison. You can see in 2018, we had 1,045 people RSVP. We had 802 attendees, which is approximately 77%. 2019, we had 928 RSVPs, 489 attendees, which is about 53%. And you're saying, why is there a drop? What we experienced last year was 4 of our neighboring districts also had job fairs at the same time. So we've learned from that. So this year, the first ever virtual job fair, we had 708 RSVPs, 636 attendees with an attendance rate of approximately 90%, which is very, very high rate. We're very proud of that rate. And that was on April 23rd. So we're having the next virtual job fair on June the 2nd. Obviously, in this process, we learned a lot. Dr. Coleman did a really good job. He reached out to participants and to staff to survey them and get feedback. That feedback has been collected and evaluated so that we can make adjustments. So on June the 2nd, we have even a more effective job fair. And I think as far as the meal service and the job fair, I think we can say two things. And this is the epitome, and it illustrates that together we can, and we are the exception. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mersch. And at this time, we're going to ask Dr. West if you would please make a presentation on staff development, what it may look like in the future.
Certainly will. I know that on tonight's agenda is a consideration of approval of the CV 2030, and our staff absolutely values your leadership, trustees, and appreciates that our new motto in that is high expectations for all. So I bet if you're like any of the rest of us that you've heard the term new normal ad nauseum. I've absolutely never had the opportunity to begin a new job in a state of a pandemic. And so in this new normal and during this pandemic, our team has worked very diligently, and you're going to hear more, as Dr. Chapman said, from the chiefs tonight about the struggles of moving our learning from the classroom to online with no advance warning. But as we've done this work, we've been reminded of our values, the values that you all included in our collaborative vision. One of those CFB value statements says, a growth mindset for students, faculty, and staff. And boy, have we had to exhibit a growth mindset during this time. Another value statement says, support and love each and every student, and support and love them as a whole student. So we have decided from your leadership and the support of the many who envision the CV 2030 that the new normal also calls for a new name for Learn More, Achieve More. So not only will Learn More, Achieve More have a new name, but it also will have new priorities related to your priorities and the priorities of our community and our students and our faculty. And it's going to include the new things that we have learned. Now, we don't have that new name yet, but we do have that new focus. One of the things that we always think about is the fact that 67% of our students are considered economically disadvantaged. And as we think about the pandemic that we're in, who knows what that number is going to be after we make it through COVID. CV 2030 includes the expectation that we understand and support the whole child. That document, our document, says that we're going to understand and support the whole child, and some of that data that's in that document that we're going to dive more deeply into includes things like attendance and homelessness and economic status and health and mental health, etc. So as we've been designing and thinking about our summer learning and what we wanted to do, we definitely wanted to learn from all of the things that we've learned. You all know just from being in this board meeting that we've learned a lot for how we could meet online. And so that's part of our new focus of whatever our new Learn More, Achieve More is that we're going to have our learning for our staff online in a virtual experience. And this will give us all an opportunity to see what it's like to actually teach online so that others can learn. And it will also help us all to understand better what our students have experienced during this time of pandemic. So definitely stay tuned for that new name, but also know that our CFB team is ready to combine what we've learned in the last month and a half alongside the visioning work of the Collaborative Vision 2030. So thank you for the opportunity for me to tell you about that tonight.
Thank you. And we'll let the board ask questions at the end of all the presentations. And Dr. Chapman, I believe you have some more.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. West. And at this time, we're going to have the three chiefs give a presentation, starting with Ms. Machayo, then followed by Ms. De La Rosa, and then finally Dr. Hamlin about our journey during the closure. Ms. Machayo?
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Chapman, President Klein, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We would like to share with you some of the information along with the timeline of events that outline our school closure thus far. Week 1 and week 2, March 16th and March 23rd, is what we're calling phase 1, where we conducted a landscape analysis. During this time, we provided instructional resources for our parents and students for at-home learning. We gathered information regarding access to Wi-Fi and access to technology devices. We did a Parent Square survey, and we discovered that not all of our parents were accessing Parent Square. So teachers, counselors, and principals all contacted their students and families personally. Given our technology resources, CFB was well positioned to move forward with a high-tech instructional platform during school closure. Teachers were provided professional development to assist them in transitioning to a virtual classroom environment. Digital learning specialists were crucial in this process, as the learning curve for some of our staff members was quite steep. And chiefs, correct. Digital learning content directors and instructional coaches revised the current CFB scope and sequence for our COVID at-home learning plan. We focused on the essential standards of the content. In order to streamline communication, we created a district-wide process to share daily updates. We also began delivering hotspots to families. Week 3, March 30th, began phase 2 of academics and feedback. During this time, teachers provided their own lessons following the scope and sequence from directors and instructional coaches. Specific feedback was provided to students. Teachers were able to take ownership of their virtual learning opportunities that they created for students. Teachers also assisted parents learning how to access the new online learning management systems. The digital learning specialists created a parent website for help. Internet provider options were also given to parents through Parent Square. Week 4, April 6th, we had our first device rollout at the elementary level, and also provided more information about internet providers. We also began establishing the grading procedures and the use of feedback trackers at the elementary level. And at the district level, we ran a Teams report to identify students that were in need of additional assistance or currently not passing their courses. And that information was shared with principals and teachers so that we made sure that they will get the assistance they need. Week 5, April 13th, we published the COVID grading procedures via Parent Square.
Week 6, April 20th, Technology Department set up 2 locations, the Technology Learning Center and Newman Smith High School, to assist families with log-on issues, repair or swap devices on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 11 a.m. and 5 to 7 p.m. Elementary device rollout number 2 also occurred during this week, and we provided our families with a flyer with internet provider options. Week 7, April 27th, was phase 3, the transition phase. Content directors received information from principals to know how to best support their campus, moving forward with the support of our instructional coaches. Moving into May, Plans were created for the collection of student materials. Initial discussions have also begun regarding long-term plans in regards to technology, replacement of devices from COVID, looking at curriculum for revisions for the fall of 2020, summer trainings for our staff, and we're looking at assessment planning for elementary and secondary. To show some love and support to our high school seniors, campuses organize seniors sign pickup at all high school campuses. Week 8, May 4th, graduation plans for high school campuses at Texas Motor Speedway was announced. To share some facts with some online learning. When we initially started and we had to jump onto online learning, the initial parent score survey showed the number of students not having internet access was about 6,000 students, 25% of our student population. Since then, our amazing teachers have reached out to every student to assist parents with online learning, helping them attain access. As of May 6, we currently have 1,206 students, equal to less than 1% of our student population without internet access. Principals and teachers are continuing their efforts in assisting our parents. We're being responsive to individual family needs as we are continuing to reach out to them to see how we can assist them. Once word got out among our families that CFB was lending out devices, parents began reaching out to principals, and principals have continued to distribute devices as needed. An example where a family does not have internet because of personal reasons, a teacher provided activities for parents to use at home. Parents take pictures of the final product and send it back to the teacher for feedback. Another example is where a teacher provided copies of instructional activities that students can complete at home. To date, we have 1,525 students, that is equal than less than 1% of our student population, who campuses have been unable to establish any contact with these families since school closure began. Principals and teachers continue to reach out to these families via email, making phone calls to all contacts on Teams, and several have even made home visits. Prior to school closure, teachers and principals had established strong relationships with our families, and they've continued to foster these relationships during these challenging times to meet their individual needs. We also have about 4,000 students, equal to 16% of our student population, that have access to Wi-Fi and devices and choose not to participate. We have found that some secondary students have made the difficult choice to serve the community by working in an essential job instead of being able to complete their school work. On a good note, online learning is occurring with 21,000 students. 84% of our student population are engaged in our digital learning.
Lance, you're muted.
Am I good now? COVID-19 impact really created an opportunity for growth within our staff. We quickly identified our ability to teach students virtually. We have seen an amazing amount of instructional growth within our teachers, specifically their ability to use technology to provide engaging virtual lessons. Our teachers have been also able to hone in on the importance of timely, effective, and specific feedback. Feedback that, when provided, allows students to immediately improve their product. Communication between home and school has increased tremendously. Campuses are reporting that parents are communicating with their teachers at a higher rate. CFB has also come together as one. Our departments are collaborating around the virtual table to problem solve every scenario possible. We've really learned to look at that third way. We are currently looking at ways also to allow our senior students to possibly come back that need assistance to secure their credits and graduation to re-enter the building if we have that permission later. To talk a little bit about some tests, as in our SAT. The SAT, our students did have an opportunity to take on March 4th. We had 1,480 students receive their scores through College Board. The ACT test has been rescheduled from April the 4th to June 13th. More tests will be scheduled throughout the summer and possibly at-home opportunities. The IB examinations, all May 2020 IB examinations were canceled by the International Baccalaureate Organization. However, students in the IB diploma courses submit the other required assessments. These submitted assessments will now be used to award either the diploma or course certification. AP exams will also continue. They will be done between May the 11th and the 22nd, through the 22nd, in a home environment with full access for all students. The exams will not exceed 45 minutes and are limited to free response, no multiple choice questions. They will also be only taught or tested on all things that were taught up to March 20th. Students may take their AP exams on their smartphones, tablet, or their Chromebook. Students who wish to cancel their AP test will have that ability and can apply for a refund. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. Thank you also, Ms. Delarosa, Ms. Matayo, and I would ask the board members if they have any questions at this time. I have a question.
Ms. Klein,
Oh, go ahead.
question for Ms. West. You talked about learn more, achieve more. We heard that we're going to be getting a new name. We're excited to hear that. Some part or a significant part or all is going to go to a virtual format. I'm kind of curious to know how much is going to be virtual. Do we know a few more details about the virtual experience? I can see that being a plus in letting our teachers and staff experience what our kids are.
We don't have it completely planned yet, but I envision that it would be all virtual. And let me tell you why. Last week, I jumped into staff development that our staff was doing, and it was pre-K teachers and kindergarten teachers actually that were doing a staff development about literacy, and they were using Zoom. And I noticed that as they were teaching in this virtual environment, that even though they're really great teachers, obviously for the littles, and you're used to being very active with littles, they did a great job, but they were struggling with the technology piece, and they were struggling with the fact that you have to keep people's attention during a technology kind of professional development. So they were trying some different things, like they would have us go into different rooms and talk and then come back. But sometimes you'd get into the next room, you just get to talking, and then they'd pull you back, and we didn't really have enough time to discuss. So I thought, we're learning a lot about what teaching looks like over technology, and I can only imagine what our students are experiencing. So I thought, let's play with that ourselves. Let's figure it out. So I expect it'll be all virtual, but we'll see as we get closer.
Thank you.
I was going to ask Mr. Mersch, how many meals do we typically serve per week when we're not in a pandemic?
That is a great question, and I'll have to get back with you because I do not know what that exact number is.
I was just thinking it was probably close, but curious. We had a notice today that MetroCrest was handing out food at Newman Smith. And we appreciate all of our partners that are participating to help feed our kids. Joe's Pizza also does a lot distributing food at Beltline and Josie area. Board members, any other questions?
Mr. Matthews has one.
Yeah, I have two questions, actually, one for Maggie and one for Dr. Chapman. Can you hear me? Okay. Maggie, now given the fact that, you know, all I know about math is the first four letters of my last name, but my quick calculations on the number of kids that don't have internet access, my figures come up to a little over 6% instead of less than 1%, unless I didn't hear your numbers right. But so I don't know. And Dr. Chapman, for you, all I've heard from the governor is that outdoor graduations can begin on June the 1st. So I guess is Denton County trumping in that? Is that what I understand?
No, sir. So ours is a hybrid. You're correct. So June 1st is for outdoor graduations. That is for people actually sitting in the stands, like you would see at in a one-town high school, normally at a stadium. We are not doing such. So ours will be released and can do it on May 15th, which is through vehicles. And the commissioner did approve this, as well as the judge. So the parents are going to come in and they're going to take a right and they're going to park in the pit, and they have to remain in their vehicles. And then the kids are going to come out and they're going to line up and they're going to stay 6 feet apart, and they're going to be in chairs 6 feet apart. And we're going to be in gloves and masks, et cetera. And we're going to follow the right process and protocols that are set in place. So yes, correct. May 15th, hybrids are approved and or need to be approved. Everything else is prohibited outdoor until June 1. Yes, sir, you're correct. But ours falls under the right protocol and timelines.
Thank you.
And when the screen at Texas Motor Speedway was installed, it was the biggest one in the world.
Ms. Klein, this is Sally. I have an additional question for Dr. Chapman related to graduation. You had mentioned that when they come in, the students will be in one car and go one direction and the parents will go the other. What if the students do not have a car? I can imagine that being a huge question.
Yes, correct. So we're mapping that out as we speak. The kids will get one pass for them for a vehicle and one pass for the parents in the vehicle. Let's say they do not have a vehicle, like you were stating. Well, we have a process for that they can use. The parent can actually go into the parking lot where the kid is, cannot get out of the car, or they can go to the right instead of the left, and then the kid will be let out right there at the entrance to the left, and then they can walk across in their cap and gown. So we do have that all mapped out in the process, because obviously they're not all going to have vehicles. You're exactly right. So we've already mapped out all of those pieces. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And we're going to, and just so everyone knows, we will give all of this information out after the 15th. So the week after, that's what, the 18th? That week, May 18th, we will have all the information. We're going to have diagrams. We're going to be handing out the passes, etc., the week prior to graduation. But they'll have all of that information well in advance. We're going to send it out electronically through Parent Square. It's going to be in their packets as they pick up their caps and gowns. Everything will be a well-oiled machine by the time that graduation actually comes around. We just don't want to give out a whole lot of information right now until we have that one more second run-through on May 15th, just with the school district principals and superintendents.
And I've seen on
Ms. Klein,
social
I have one
media
more question.
questions about cap and gowns. And I understand that we're going to be telling them about when to pick all that stuff up also.
We will, yes, and we're going to, the principals will release that information. Again, we're going to try to push that date closer to May 30th, so that they're not holding the passes and or cap and gowns too long. I think Miss Derrick had a question.
Ms. Derrick, do you have another question?
Yes, I have one more question, also off of John's question, about the total enrollment for the district currently? So what number are we using in order to calculate out these percentages? Because I think I agree that the percentages don't seem to add up.
Right, and I wanted to correct that. So we're using 25,500 students, and back to, I think it was Mr. Shackman? No, it was Mr. Matthews. Yes, it is, you're correct, it is 5%.
What I might add is that, the motto for us, as I mentioned before, just says high expectations for all. And to us, it doesn't matter if it's 1% or 5%. That's not all. Until we get all of our students connected, we won't be happy. And that's the work that we're continuing to do through ordering hotspots and also just coming up with collaboration in our city for how we can get internet access for more of our students. So any number over 0 is too large.
President Klein?
Yes, Mr. Ramos.
I have a couple of comments and a question for Ms. De La Rosa. First off, Dr. Chapman, thank you for trying to find a way to move forward with the graduation. Mr. Merge, I've been getting messages about the food and how the families come to pick up the foods, but until you put that picture, it was hard for me to visualize until you put that picture. So thank you. I appreciate what your department's doing with regards to that. It really, now I can see, it's easier for me to see what you're all going through, and thank you. Mr. I have a question regarding the grades. I think you were mentioning something that they're locked in or something along those lines now based on their performance. Is that correct?
On their grades, can you?
With regards to what their grades are going to be for the year, the students.
So for elementary, we're going with feedback only.
Okay.
So their final grade will be averaged out from the first, second, and the third 9 weeks.
Okay.
And then for the 4 9th weeks is going to be just feedback. Dr. Hamlin, you want to elaborate on what secondary is doing for grades?
Absolutely. I'm not muted, am I, Mr.? Can you hear me? Good. All right, good. Our secondary, we are basically, it is a no harm procedure that we created for our secondary. What we're doing with the secondary, so their 4th 9 weeks grades, we're asking them to turn in at least 1 graded assignment per week. So they're going to have 6 at the total at the end. Their 4th 9 weeks cannot hurt their semester average. An example would be if I have an 80 in the 3rd 9 weeks and I do a little bit of work, but I don't do enough, and I get a 60 average for the 6 assignments that I've turned in, I'm going to take that 80 and I'm going to look at that 60. That 60 is going to go away because it cannot hurt my semester average. Now, say I have a 60 in the 3rd 9 weeks and I do all my assignments and my average for the 4th 9 weeks is an 80. I'm going to take that 60 in the 3rd 9 weeks. I'm going to average it with the 80 in the 4th 9 weeks. And now that engagement has helped me raise my score. So now that average will be a 70. So we are not allowing any grades during closure to hurt any of our students, pre-K to 12.
So it can benefit them if they do some stuff, but it can't.
Absolutely. It can only
the reason
help
I was asking is I look back and I remember when I was in school, and if I would have had this system, I probably would have tried to find a way to skate it. But if there's something to motivate you to keep helping you, to keep raising the average, I think that's great. That's the reason I was asking.
And when we knew that we would probably have some students that would fall off a little bit because they have a 90 in the 3rd 9 weeks.
That would have been me.
We knew that might happen. And then that's going to kind of play into the numbers that we shared earlier about students that have access and now choose not to. But we created a procedure that could only help students, not hurt at any time.
Thank you. I can't even imagine what you guys are going through to try to figure something out in these times. So thank you.
This is the best time ever.
Ms. Klein, I have a question. So,
Go ahead.
and I don't know if this is for Ms. Della Rosa or Mr. Hamlin, but and you just mentioned that those that have access and are choosing not to participate at any level or partial level, about 4,000 students. So our campuses or teachers or principal, someone, are they individually reaching out and getting an answer from those students or from parents that say, we're going to work during this time instead of going to school? Or, I guess what I want to make sure is that there's no kids falling through the crack and we're making assumptions about anybody.
And I'm going to jump in there. And, we shared the number earlier, the 6,000 students. Yeah, and it's a great example because our teachers and our administrators, they have been making phone calls, they have been emailing, they have been going door to door. We have teachers going door to door and leaving notes on the doors and taking pictures of the notes to show that, hey, we were here, we need you, and we want you to be engaged. They haven't stopped. I mean, I received spreadsheets yesterday from several of my high schools, and I could give you a list of student names who have been contacted when they were contacted, and all the different times they've been called, emailed, and had home visits with no response. They have not given up. They're pounding the pavement. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, and I'm not questioning their effort at all.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
Please be clear.
Yeah.
Not at all. I guess I just more on the process that I'm sorry, y'all, not me, that y'all have a way to identify those situations quickly and figure out the process for that kind of contact, a first step, an escalated contact, a next contact. Because like Dr. West said, one not participating is bad. I guess that's what I'm concerned. I just want to make sure we're not losing our students. If they're making a family choice to do something different, that we have that and we've done what we can.
Yeah, and I will say this, just that we do have, and I'm very, very pleased and so proud of all of our campuses, elementary through high school and early college, because they have plenty of evidence to show that some of these families, and I actually talked with one parent tonight, flat out, just my students will not be doing any work, so, and we're not going to respond. We're not going to read Parent Square. So, we have those situations, but we do have all of the documentation to where, we know where these kids, the ones who want to communicate, we know where they're at. And our campuses are doing a great job of, once again, going through with the emails and the phone calls and home visits. I mean, as of yesterday. So like I said, they're working hard. We know they're working hard. And we're just continuing to try to get our students engaged all the way till the end.
Just to add on to that, at the elementary level, that's the beautiful thing about using the feedback tracker, because it has every child's name and every teacher is recording, if a parent did decline the learning opportunities, that's in the notes, the attempts that they've made to get in touch with families. So you can see to the fine grained level of every classroom, every student, the notes that the teachers have taken in the feedback tracker. And then principals have access to it because it's a shared document within the campus.
Okay. And I want to share with y'all, I had a teacher comment to me that, they'd never worked harder on plans and feedback and that sort of thing during this time. But with the loss of that contact and the loss of being with our kids in the classroom, they had really never felt like they had, taught less, I guess, and that they were really missing that contact, and I know that's hard. So their efforts are appreciated for sure.
Thank you. I'll wait just a couple more seconds and see if anybody has anything. I really appreciate all of y'all's comments. I appreciate Dr. Chapman and the staff's update, and appreciate all the effort done for high expectations for all. At this time, we'll go ahead and move on to audience for guests. Oh, never mind. We're back to C. Board members, do you have any questions regarding consent agenda items? This is our usual pre-meeting that we're having at this time instead of 6. Other than I can't see Sally, everybody else looks good. Would that be a safe assumption? So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 3. The next item on the agenda is audience for guests. The board will accept comments from citizens of the district and from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so during this time. Mr. Monroe, do we have any audience for guests?
I do not see any hands up.
It sounds like we don't have any, Mr. Monroe.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. So we'll proceed on to our next agenda item, number 4, consent agenda. The consent agenda is a mechanism that the board uses to approve a number of routine items together with a single vote.
I'm sorry.
Compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the public notice for this meeting includes the list of all consent agenda items, and the board has been provided ample information about these items in advance. Prior to any action taken on the consent agenda, board members may request withdrawal of individual items for clarification or discussion. Board members, would anybody like to remove any items from the consent agenda at this time? So if there's no items to be removed, is there any action anybody wants to take? Mr. Shackman. Can you unmute, please? Oh, you're muted again. There you go.
It's double beeping and sometimes it turns itself off. Anyway, okay, can you hear me now? Then I will make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Shackman. We have a second. Mr. Ramos, thank you for your second. Board members, I'll ask you to please raise your hands. We'll count hands. How's that? All those in favor of the consent agenda as presented? So that appears to be unanimous, and I appreciate the board members for voting. Our next item is item 5, non-action items for discussion. 5A is budget update. Mr. Roderick.
Thank you. Give me 1 second to pull up the my document.
It's taking just a second.
Okay, tonight, thank you very much, President Klein. Tonight we want to talk about the 2021 budget update. First, we want to touch on the Texas economy, like everybody has seen. Glenn Hager, the state comptroller, had given an interview to the Texas Tribune, and he had stated that with the combination of COVID-19 and the price of oil, Texas has entered a recession. He said that as we look at revenue estimates for the current biennium and the next biennium, He said there's really not enough information to give an update on those estimates currently, but he could come back in the summertime and adjust those revenue estimates down as much as several $billion. And so as the last week, the latest sales tax data came in from March 2020, and they had said that it is down 9.3% from the previous month. And that's in March 2020 is really only half of the state closure. And so also in the current biennium budget is based on oil prices being priced at $50 to $55 per barrel. But oil prices were trending from anywhere between $6 to $26. As we look at the unemployment for Texas, the St. Louis Federal Reserve Chairman predicted 32.1%. Regional estimates have come in. They've said that they're trending more towards 10 to 25%. As more data is collected, we'll get we'll see what those numbers actually come in. As we start to look at our 1920 budget, you know, the Texas Education Agency had said funding will continue as long as districts to commit to supporting students instructionally while at home. You know, average daily attendance drives how we're funded, you know, from the state. And they stated 4 6 weeks ADA will be the last day of instruction. So for CFB, that's March 6th, which was the Friday before spring break. You can see that they've also stated that the 5th and 6 weeks ADAs will not be counted. And they've also released a plan on how they plan to calculate their ADA, our ADA for 1920. They'll look at our past 5th and 6 weeks attendance rates. And so if a district has a higher attendance rates for the 5th and 6 weeks, then you'll see your ADA increase. But if you have a lower ADA for those attendance rates for those 5th and 6 weeks, then our ADA will be adjusted in the downward fashion. Also, like Dr. Chapman had mentioned, school districts will need to file their missed school day waiver, and that is due June 18th. They've also said federal funds can continue to be used to pay for staff during closure. We have many staff that are paid with IDEA-B entitled funds, and so that was a good thing to hear from TA. On state allotments, for 1920 under House Bill 3, there are many new allotments or adjustments to our current allotments, such as early education allotment. The bilingual allotment has been adjusted, compensatory education, CCMR is a new allotment. We continue to monitor those spending requirements. TA has not waived those spending requirements currently, but they said that they'll evaluate that as data is collected. So if they see a lot of districts not meeting those requirements, then they could come back at a later date and say, oh, yes, okay, we will waive those for 1920. Also, another thing, if these requirements are not met, you could always make it up. They've said that you could always make it up in the following year. As we're still collecting numbers to do a 1920 projection, right now we're in good shape with regards to our collection of our property taxes. We usually finish up the bulk of our taxes, collecting our taxes by the end of January. So this was pre-closure. And so right now we're sitting at about 98.5%. Interest income will be affected for the rest of the year because of the Fed's decision to lower the interest rates. We anticipate seeing savings in substitute pay, utilities, overtime, and transportation. You know, when it's all said and done, we think we expect to have a positive variance for 1920. As we start to look at our 2021 budget, you know, property values is going to be a huge issue. Our appraisal districts, the potential of late certifications due to the difficulty of in-person appeals, that's going to be a major factor. Even Dallas County has released their schedule last week, and they had said that they don't plan to certify their values until August 20th. And as you know, that at our next board meeting, we'll set our time and place of where we'll adopt our budget and our tax rate. Our tax year 2020 values are based on a January 1 evaluation date. The appraisal districts knows that the pandemic has affected, you know, the values. but they're really limited because of the valuation date. The appraisal districts had also discussed the option of no reappraisals, but they were concerned that it would be invalidated by the comptroller in the property value study. And so based on the latest information from the appraisal districts that we received on April 30th, we could see increases from 8.5% to 9.6%. Last year, we increased 9.2%. We had in property value growth. But at the same time, we want to look into the future. We'll likely see depressed values for January 1, 2021, which will be used in the 21-22 budget. TEA has also, since we last talked, TEA has revised how they will calculate our Tier 1 tax rate. And now they're going to use certified values from July 2020 compared to July 19 values. And their goal is to provide tax rates to the districts by August 5th. But with the delay of the certifications and the requirement to post the notice of budget and tax rate, that's may pose a problem. And so TEA has issued guidance saying one possible solution is to post the tax rate at the state compressed rate of 0.9165, and then the district could always adopt a lower tax rate than what was published without having to go out and republishing that rate. And the compressed rate of 9164, that is based on the state comptroller's value estimate of a little over 4%. Also, districts have 60 days or September 30th after certified values are published to adopt their tax rate. So an option could always be that we could adopt our budget in August and then come back in September to adopt the tax rate. As we look at the compensation for 2021, there's lots of unknowns about the future state revenue. And so as we've done our projections, a conservative compensation estimate, we're using at 2% for 2021. Some of the district initiatives, like Dr. Chapman had mentioned, is the early education allotment. We've planned to hire a coordinator and instructional coaches using the early education allotment, as well as we move to full-day pre-K at additional campuses. So we're looking to hire pre-K teachers as well as special ed pre-K teachers and aides. CCMR is also an allotment that is new under House Bill 3, and we're focused on hiring coordinator of CCMR as well as deans to help the students through that process. Also, special education teachers and support staff has been a focus, as well as Landry STEAM teachers, counselor support, also continuing the fine arts programs from the elementary to middle school on into high school. So additional fine art, a dance teacher for Field and Blaylock, and as well as looking at athletic stipends and fine arts adjustments based on the TASB salary review that we had earlier in the year. As we look at tax collections, the district averages about 99.5%, but it's really unknown how adversely this could affect collections going into the 2021 budget. And then we've explored the possible, just reduction to the collection rate. And so some of our estimates, we've used a collection rate of 97%. Interest income is also going to be affected, like I mentioned earlier, because interest rates are right now, it's between 0 and 0.5%. And then state revenue, there's so many questions. Will there be a reduction? Will there be a special recession? Is it going to be similar to the 2010-11 stabilization funds where the state supplanted state revenue for federal dollars and pass that on to districts? And we always want to be aware of the formula transition grant that we're getting. Right now it's about 2021, and like I said, that will expire at the end of 23-24. And as we look at the 2021 budget, we're still in the development process. Just to give you kind of a background, compensation for every 1% of a pay adjustment, it's about $1.8 million. So on a 2% pay increase, it would be about $3.6 million. We're still finalizing our positions, and so we didn't want to bring you in numbers. And so we're just kind of give you an idea of where we are in the process. And so right now we're still trying to identify some surplus positions, and because payroll makes up such a large part of our budget, it's about 83% of our budget. And because of the shutdown, we've had some delay in our campus budgets of getting those submitted. You know, the campus is starting to get caught up, but those are one of the pieces that, you know, was kind of that we were missing. And then, but at the end of the day, we think the 2021 budget, we're going to have a balanced budget. And someone said in some of these seminars that we've been listening to from the state, they had said, plan for the worst, but hope for the best. And so that's what we're trying to do currently as we build our 2021 budget. And then just give you kind of an idea of, you know, based on our information we've got from our appraisal districts, as we look at our tax rate, you can see in 1819 pre-House Bill 3, we have the general fund tax rate of $1.17, where our tier 1 rate is going to be $1. And then in 1920, the first year of House Bill 3, our tier 1 got compressed to 93 cents. Our golden pennies would increase where no recapture to 8, and then copper pennies were compressed to 0.05835. And so as we look at 2021, with how, if we're estimating an 8.5% property value growth, our tier 1 rate will be compressed to 0.875. Our golden and copper pennies will stay the same, but our total general fund tax rate will be 1.0133, which is a little over a 5% decrease from 1920. And then if our property values come in very similar to what we did last year, we'll likely see that tier 1 tax rate compressed even further. And so as the next steps for the June board meeting, we'll bring back a compensation adjustment for the board to consider. It'll have stipends as well, extra duty pay, and we'll give another budget update. We'll also set the time and date for our budget hearing in August. And we'll also just continue to monitor guidance from TA, because that comes out daily. And so we'll keep a close eye on legislative updates, especially during the summer months, if they do have a special session or whatever they decide as you know, federal dollars you know, are allocated to the state, and how that will be handled. So, but with that concludes my presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Roderick. Board members, are there any questions about the budget update?
Ms. Klein?
Yes, Mr. Shackman?
Mr. Roderick, a question related to, you're talking about where we find compensation, where we find the money and all that. With the current interest rates so low, has there been any thought or discussion to possibly refunding or refinancing, the right phrase, for some of our bonds to potentially save us some money?
Yes, we have been in contact with our financial advisor, and he'd actually left me a message today. A few months back, we had Tanya had talked to Dr. Chapman, and we had started that discussion, but then we had put it off. And they had said right now, with the rates the way they are, they had explored an option of a taxable refund. And so usually a lot of school districts, they don't really, a lot of times it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a taxable refunding. And so we're still monitoring that situation, but they had said, you know, the rates right now it's almost not a good time to go to market, even in this environment, because the appetite for bonds is sometimes not there. And so it's really the market right now is really finicky on that. But we are continuing to explore that option to see if that would be beneficial.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I really appreciate Mr. Roderick's presentation and the time that I know went into correctly and carefully answering and presenting to us where we're headed.
Thank you.
Dr. Chapman, I understand we have an audience for guests after all.
Yes, ma'am. Right at the last minute. So if you don't mind, we actually have two. So if we could allow those two individuals to speak.
Okay, I'm gonna, Mr. Paul Russ, I'm going to go ahead and move him up and unmute. Just 1 second.
Let me kind of explain a little bit about the guidelines. Our timekeeper will be Vice President Guillermo Ramos. Each speaker will have 3 minutes, and the timekeeper will let you know when you have 1 minute left. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our first speaker.
Mr. Russell, you should be able to speak now.
Good evening, guys. This is Paul Russett, Newman Smith High School. I just want to thank you guys for the positive leadership. I think we are going to just, in my small world at Newman Smith and the leadership there and the teachers and the coaches, I've been in so many Zoom meetings with kids and with coaches and teachers that here's the positive piece. I think because we are having to learn some new tricks and to slow down and really, really figure things out as well as with the kids, it's going to be a positive thing. We're going to come out even better now, just for the fact that we are learning how to get another form of teaching to these kiddos, and some kids are responding really, really well. We were in some meetings today with the coaches and players and students, and we're finding kids that we haven't found that have been just kind of AWOL, but they're coming to these meetings as far as athletically, and it's done nothing but help us. It's been really, really good. Our coaches and our teachers and our administrative team has really, really helped out finding these kids, searching really hard, and I really see us as, after we get out of this, we're going to be a lot better off. There's no doubt about it. As far as we're going to be better teachers, we're going to be better coaches, we're going to be really, really good. We're going to be in good shape. So I just wanted to say thank you guys very much. Stay positive, stay upbeat, because we are reaching out to the kids and they are hearing your message, they are getting the parent squares. It helps, and we do have some good engagement, and that I just wanted to say that, and I just wanted to not miss an opportunity to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Issa. Mr. Monroe.
The other hand that is up is Mr. Chris Gordon. And unmute.
Hello, Mr. Monroe. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, fantastic. I appreciate you acknowledging. I was a little late trying to find the little hand. Wasn't sure how to raise it. That's my fault, but I appreciate the acknowledgement. My name is Chris Gordon, and I'm the North Texas Sales Manager for Crosspoint Communications. And I just wanted to thank this board and purchasing and all of the team members that it took to put out such a robust RFP for your radio, your district-wide radio communication system that is before you tonight. I asked a couple of questions in Q&A before it started and earlier, and I never heard back. I was trying to find an agenda. I didn't know if this agenda item was under the consent agenda item or later on, but regardless, myself and my sales manager, we're on the line with you listening. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to go through it with you. Just thought I'd let you know. But thank you, and I commend all of the work that you're doing tonight.
Thank you, and I believe that was under the consent agenda. But thank you, Mr. Gordon. We appreciate anybody that wants to talk to us about how CFB is doing, and we know that our staff is working hard during this time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. So, Dr. Chapman, our next item would be 5B, construction update, which will be Malcolm Mulroney.
All right. Thank you, President Klein, members of the board, and Dr. Chapman for this opportunity to present a construction update. It's a big deck this evening. We have a lot of work going on. Our teams have done phenomenally well, finding ways to get work done safely, keeping our crew safe, and just getting CFB moving forward. Thank you, Scott. I will start the presentation. All right. Like I mentioned, it is a big slide deck. So it will take a second here to load. Let's get started. So starting over in active construction, Landry, though we're starting to polish it up and get it ready, is still under active construction as we start to finish out the furniture elements. Here's our cheat sheet for the project. It was 17.4 million. We did a major renovation and a 6 classroom addition to this building. This takes a look into one of these collaboration spaces. These have really been a challenge to think about how we're going to program them and which furniture we're going to use at Landry. There would be 2 large collaboration spaces and 6 smaller collaboration spaces, as well as the gallery space, which is a really amazing space that has a lot of natural light that comes into it. Partnering with our friends at Indico, we met several times with the administration on the campus, explored options, reviewed furniture that we'd used previously at McStrick, and this is what we've come up with. In the 6 small flex spaces, flexible furniture, there you'll see that there's 3 models as such, and we repeated that. So, and again, this is just a suggested layout, just like at McStrick. This furniture is all flexible and it has so many different uses. This is really just a place where we start, and then of course we bring the magic with the kids and the teachers, and they start to rearrange it and use it in all kinds of creative ways. The 2 large spaces create small sitting areas. We have some larger furniture items, kind of couches here that kind of create a barrier that start to define smaller sitting spaces, mobile whiteboards, large activity tables, smaller bench type tables, and then structured booths against the wall over here. In that really nice gallery space, we've gone for some smaller seating and these colorful tables that will really reflect that light and kind of bring a lot of life and vibrancy to that space. Over at the multi-purpose building, that's going along very well. We're going to have Scott Monroe back in there real soon here. You'll see that we're starting to lay carpet and bring on wall finishes. Excuse me. Our team there is Balfour Betty and the architect is Corgan. GMP on that project is 29.5 million. We're about 75% done. We fired up the generator, which all went very well. We're starting to bring in those finishes with the carpet, paint, as well as bringing in some of the technology items, starting to bring that new knock sensor online. I always like the before and after photo. So on the left, you can see a photo from September, where we're just hanging structural steel all the way through to today, where we have that wood ceiling finish in, as well as that interior brick and the glass that goes back into the banquet halls. Over in the technology section, the break room is coming along. We're starting to drop the appliances and put final touches on that, as well as final cleaning in the training rooms. A big component of this building is the culinary arts kitchen, as well as the cafe. We've been meeting with CTE and with the folks over at Ranchview, thinking about how we're going to program this. It's an incredible opportunity, but obviously has a lot of complications and challenges ahead of it. The idea is to partner with an operator to run the cafe, be open to the public and to the CFB staff, as well as the banquet hall and training rooms. So these guys would be able to provide coffee and light snacks to any events that we would be having at this. A little exterior shot really kind of gives that grandeur to those banquet halls where we'll be able to host our own events. Many of those things that Dawn mentioned as Teacher of the Year events, retirement celebrations, things like that will be hosted right here at our own facility. Moving down, we got the athletic turf projects at the 4 high schools. This was 4 football fields, 2 baseball and 2 softball fields, 1 each at Creekview and Ranchview. The all-in, and remember that was a combination of athletic fund and Irving, was 13.6. And completion date for this is pushing October of 2020. The big thing that we faced here was the soil conditions. When you come in with an artificial turf field, drainage and getting the field just level is vital. Part of that is making sure that the soils don't swell and shift and move on you. Our soils reports, as we suspected, came back difficult, so we've been excavating 6 to 9 feet below the field surface. And then the team brings it up in 6-inch lifts. So that means every 6 inches, they've got to moisture condition that soil and compact it. And in fact, you'll see the teams there on the right-hand side doing a Proctor test to check the density. So that's every 6 inches of lift underneath the field 6 feet or 9 feet in the worst case scenario, doing those checks to make sure that the soil is stable and won't be shifting around on us. Next is drainage. We know the big advantage of artificial turf is to get those kids back on the field playing right after storm events. As soon as it's safe to be out, not waiting for the grass and the facilities to dry out. Our kids lost over 100 playing days last year due to weather disruptions. So we're really excited for this. So you'll see we put in these trenches, put rock in around it. We spent a lot of extra time doing inspections on that pipe to make sure that none of it was collapsed or damaged during the construction process. Over in the D zone where we'll have our high jump pits, we put in these slot drains so that water doesn't start to damage our tracks. Getting the water away safely is a big part of long-term maintenance in these artificial fields. After we got the drains in place, then it comes to the final layer, that 12 inches of flex base. That's really the cap that holds the whole thing together, works great for drainage. And this is the part where I like to nerd out a little bit, because right here next to this truck, you'll see a large tripod, and that actually has a laser level that talks to this bulldozer that controls the blade, and will fine grade that field right down to the decimal percentage grading point. So that means that our fields will be absolutely perfect. And when the Hellas artificial turf goes on top of that, it's all set to go. After the shutdown, it seems like too long ago, we had a lot of uncertainty. We had the opportunity, Hellas approached us about starting the baseball and softball at Creekview. We didn't take the first option because we hadn't heard definitive decision from the state and other folks. However, what we did do is we decided around March 15th to release these teams, and that was right before we got the final decision. We stayed ahead of the curve. Apparently right after our decision, a bunch of other districts started hounding Hellas for the crew that we got. So we got the two best crews over at Ranchview and Creekview to start baseball and softball. They kicked off early, and they're going to move our construction completion up almost 2 months by doing so. So a big shout out to the administration, Renee Potter and Dr. Chapman, for staying tuned into what was happening on the UIL sports front and making that decision just ahead of the curve, keeping us leading the pack. Ranchview, loading the trucks with that topsoil. That'll be hauled out. Like I said, we'll do the same dig down on these fields, bring that back up in 6-inch lifts, and then get ready for that artificial turf. In the consent agenda this evening, we also approved our GMP for the high school vestibules. This is an important part to create that secure entry, part of the True North review, supporting Mario's team. So our contractor here will be KB Kibler. Architect was Huckabee. So over at Newman Smith, Creekview, and Ranchview. And no, Turner wasn't forgotten, but it's part of the Series 1 2018 bond package. So it will be taken care of in another GMP just to get these 3 high schools up and going. Over at Smith, this gives us a good example of what we're going to be doing. We create a transaction window. This way, when you come into the school, you ring the doorbell, not identified as a threat, you're allowed into the vestibule. There, we can scan your ID, obviously understand who you are and who you're here to see. If that all checks out, then you're allowed to move on to the campus. If that doesn't check out, then you're not in the administration area or in the student services area, and we have a safe space to keep you while we call the SRO or call for support. So this was a great solution. And here you can see we introduced that transaction counter where you'll pass through your ID and get checked by the Raptor system before proceeding into the campus. Similar solution over at Creekview. You come into the secure vestibule. Here, the existing layout, again, this was as a light renovation project. So you do actually walk through past the administration door to get your ID scanned first. We tried to scan it 100 different ways to move that door around. It just kept adding more complications. So we went with this design, but you'll get your ID scanned. Again, once you're checked through and we know who you are, then you can go on to see who you need to meet. Or if your ID doesn't come back right, then you can stay there in the secure vestibule until we have the opportunity to address the matter. Branch view, again, come in those main set of doors. We'll introduce one set of door front to keep the secure vestibule independent from the section that goes down to the auditorium. Get your ID scanned, proceed on into the campus, who you need to meet. That project will be kicking off with Kibler. May 27th, we'll be finalizing things, and then early June start, completion by August of 2020 for kids to come back. Not to be outdone, the CFB administration building threw us a curveball. We have an aging multi-zone HVAC system, and we had come to the board back in February to talk about a project. We had a market value of about $600,000. We designed the project with EMA, put it out to bid, and well, I fell out of my seat. The bids came back at 1.2 million. Saying that wasn't good enough and we had to do something because these 20-year-old units were failing and we couldn't buy parts for them, we pulled everybody back to the table. So we went to with Cook, with our maintenance team, all virtually. It's always fun to see the maintenance guys join a virtual meeting and do online drawings and so forth. But after about 3 weeks, we were able to get the price down to $650,000. The way we were able to achieve this is by taking everybody's strong cards and playing those first. So operations came in. First of all, we examined what was driving up the price. Big factor is risk. Contractor coming into our house says, you know, he's got to work around active work people. COVID solved that problem for us. What about cleaning? What about moving items? Operations stepped up. There was a lot of concern about electrical and structural steel. Maintenance stepped up. Dropping ceiling tile, putting back the ceiling grid. So everybody took on a little piece and that lightened the load. And like I said, we were able to execute the entire project at a savings of about $550,000. So the old multi-zone units went out. The new energy efficient variable flow refrigerant flow units went in. What does that mean? What that means is each space gets a AC unit basically that's powered by a unit on the roof. And therefore, if your office is occupied, we cool that office. Somebody comes up and works on a Saturday or works in the summer, we're not cooling the whole building all the time. So we'll see energy savings from this as we go forward. Also better climate for our folks who give so much. The other part of that was updating the LED lighting and the controls. Since we had everything open, we went ahead and updated the lighting. You'll see that as you go through the building, as well as give us better controls. Currently we have three dispersed control systems in the district. We're working towards a common standard. That way, when we make a change, we're using the same calendars, the same protocols, things like that. It makes a big difference. So that was getting all that ceiling grid out, dropped off all the old light fixtures, and then came back. Oh, one more tidbit because it wasn't done. The ceiling grid in the project was an odd size. It was the only building left in the district that still had this size. It was 5 foot by 18 inches. You can't get that standard grid, ceiling grid anymore, so we would actually have to custom cut ceiling tiles to go into that old ceiling. So our maintenance guys are really glad to see the back end of that and put standard 2x2 grid back in the building. A little while ago, our marquee sign was taken out. We've rebuilt it. I think it looks really fresh and new. And our project manager on this, Bobby Shaw, did a little video of it. Big shout out to Bobby and the team for getting that completed. Obviously, we dealt with the permitting issues in Carrollton, but we got through that and one or two other small challenges, but I think it came out absolutely spectacular. So great work to Be the Bubble was our contractor, and our project manager there was Bobby Shaw. So those are the active construction projects. Now we dive into the 2018 bond. Of course, we like to just cover the high-level overview. We divided the bond into 3 series. With that first series was designed in 2019, and then that May kickoff. That was the GMPs that we've seen this evening, and we'll get a little peek at what's happening at McCorder. Series 2 is in design right now, with Newman Smith and Perry being the big projects, a couple of elementaries on that, and that's going to be going into construction next year about this time. And we have that gap as we sell the last series of bonds in 2020 and go into construction for 2023. So that's the three big bites or series, if you would. Taking on series 1, McCorder is the first one out the gate, and in fact is ahead of schedule. New Sheffield, remember that goes through that permitting process. We'll be doing the GMP and for that in August for a late summer construction start. And then Vivian Field and Turner will be starting this month, in fact. So over at McWhorter Elementary, worked with the librarians to get that space emptied and cleared out. Over on the roof, the guys moved real fast. Just about as soon as the shutdown was called, they had units being shipped. Again, the wisdom of the board to buy that Texas Air contract where we could control our own HVAC units meant that we could order those outside of what was happening with the construction permitting and everything else. So we had those ready to go. Same thing at Turner and Field, by the way. So that really accelerated us. And actually that relationship with Texas Air saved us money at the admin as well, since we were a preferred customer. So over at McWhorter, we got the new roof down. You'll see that white membrane roof, reflects heat, is also energy efficient, and is a great product. Over inside the building, they didn't wait long. As soon as those books were cleared out by the librarian staff, they went to work getting that opened up. So on the left, you have that photo from the board work study from November 4th to this last month, where they have that all scraped, ready to start the renovation work. Jumping over to Vivian Field, we are, in fact, this needs to be updated. The GMP is passed and we are ready to go. So Jackson, I know that those guys are here. You are late and behind schedule and over budget. Get to work. Those guys will be going hard starting May 18th. We've already started packing up the classrooms that will be impacted, working on phasing plans, working with the campus on how we're going to do any activities for the remaining of the year, as well through the summer, and be ready for kids to come back in August. Vivian Field will remain an active campus through the school year, all the way through next summer. So it's going to be a challenge. I am very confident that our Jackson team is the right team to have on board. We've already been introduced to our project managers and they've been working with Chad on construction plans, but it is going to be a tough one. Here's a quick view of the scope of work. We obviously relocate the entry back to the side with the new canopy and the new branding there to give us that street presence. Introduce the collaboration spaces between each of the 4 classrooms. So this would be for both 7th grade and 8th grade, 3 collaboration spaces per grade for a total of 6 collaboration spaces. Collaboration space is made up of a couple of key components: 4 classrooms or learning studios, 4 independent breakout rooms, and a large storage, and of course the collaboration space. This allows for that dynamic flow between the classroom and the collaboration space where kids can kind of figure out their own independent learning styles, as well as do larger projects. These are not hallways. It's critical to understand that collaboration spaces cannot be widened hallways. They need to have separate corridors and then create a collaboration space where you can have that work stay up. So if you start a project, you don't have to pack it all up at the change of period. It can actually stay there and you can keep working on it. So that's that administration move from its current location to the middle of the school there. That comes with a new secure vestibule, very similar to what we're doing at the high schools with the waiting area and the transaction counter, as well as some additional conference rooms catering that need that we identified on the campus. A big part of Vivian Field is this incredible courtyard. Unfortunately, it's really a dead space, so we've spent a lot of time figuring out how to activate it, and this has become a gem. So over here on the 6th grade side, you've got these roll-up doors that create that indoor-outdoor learning. Over here on the engineering, again, you have that space where on nice days, those doors can go up. And of course, inclement weather. Create this boardwalk around the whole perimeter and then create shade to, again, give some protection from the elements as you enjoy that indoor-outdoor. So you can see on the hot wall there, the canopies are solid, and then on the lighter wall, the canopies are thinned to allow that natural light to come through. There shows some of the openings going into those flex learning spaces and flex labs. Because one project wouldn't be good enough, let's kick off another large 20-year renovation at Turner High School. Turner High School is going to be a $32.9 million package, again run by Jackson, architect is Huckabee. We're going to be starting this on May 18th as well. We've been meeting with Adam, figuring out which teachers need to be moved, which ones will be boxed up, and how we can support them there. They'll be starting with the admin and special ed suites. This will be the first section to be kicked off. So the admin gets that secure vestibule, again with the transaction counter, and a new entry to student services and the main administration. The other part is creating a special ed suite with all the life skills services that are necessary, and creating some space there that has access, first of all, to a drive so that the kids can be dropped off at the front of the school, and access to that secure courtyard to give that outdoor space. We're also consolidating our counselors. They're a little dispersed through the building, and putting them next to the BRS. So by giving those services with the BRS and the counselors and the special ed in the same block here, we're hoping to really unify that force to provide the best services for those kids. Here's a look at the new entry. So again, the canopies for both Vivian Field and Turner will happen in the second summer of 2021 due to the engineering and manufacturing of those canopies, but the entry work on the inside will happen in the first phase. Once we get those, the special ed folks relocated towards the front of the school in the new suite, that will create the opportunity to build out the ROTC suite. And once the ROTC folks are moved over, then the METSA folks will expand into that additional building. We'll provide some security fencing around the two METSA buildings and back to the cafeteria entrance, so that really becomes part of the campus culture again, instead of being these outliers. So that will allow METSA folks to consolidate in those two buildings, and ROTC to work into the heart of the building and become part of the school culture. From there, we'll expand AMAT. AMAT's grown and needs to expand into two classrooms, and then create this small courtyard access. This courtyard here is right here behind the library. I think it's often forgotten. It's got a beautiful large tree in it. We'll celebrate that, provide glass fronts along the edge, expand this space open to the corridor. So as you come down the corridor, you'll be able to see right across through those windows into that courtyard, and all that natural light get back into those darkened corridors. Really excited about creating these kind of third spaces. We've been working with the high school folks on the high school experience, and how do we create these pockets of space where high school kids can, under reasonable supervision in a safe environment, but start to have a little bit of space in between class and the next activity. Biomed is growing with the EMT and the fire programs, so we're providing additional space there. We're finishing out the biomed. We're going to do a kind of a hospital floor there and give it that real life experience. The main courtyard is also getting a similar expansion, like I mentioned, opening those corridors. So here's a good example where you're walking down the corridor and you can see right across this small collaboration space into the courtyard, providing both sight into the courtyard and natural light back into the corridor. Similar to Vivian Field, a boardwalk around the perimeter with a canopy, and then an artificial turf field section in the middle, kind of creates that outdoor-indoor learning opportunity. Big part of the Turner renovation is the CTE side, and when we met with CTE, they said, give us that real life experience. We want to provide as close to that storefront experience that we can. Currently, our cosmetology folks have to be met at the front door and walk through the school. They don't have that interaction with a receptionist, and it doesn't have that feel. So we took on that challenge and we created Pride Land. What that will do is create a courtyard, an outdoor plaza through the back end of the school here, connecting these two buildings again, over by the auto shop and the gym there. So creating these canopies, we allow for that indoor-outdoor aspect where doors and roll-up doors can be left open on nice days. We've got some screenings, create some exciting shadows, and then some branding. So you have that real pedestrian mall feel. This construction won't happen until well into 2021. It's the last piece of the project to fall into place just because of all the other moving pieces, but we're really excited about it. Over here is the vet med with access to the road. There'll be a receptionist, examination rooms, as well as a kennel. Again, create that real life experience for those students where they can feel like they're working in a veterinary office. Over in cosmetology, gone for a clean, modern approach. The mirrors and chairs are flexible, and the electric will come on reels, will be on reels coming from the ceiling. This allows us to grow the program, or unfortunately shrink the program if necessary, but allows us to adapt to the needs of the campus. Really exciting space. You have the receptionist counter here, you have the wet area for hair and so forth in the back, as well as a classroom space and a locker room space, giving that the real life experience that CTE said was so vital to, one, achieving their certifications and preparing the kids to go out. So overall, big 2-year ambitious project. We'll be starting over in the front with the admin, then going towards METSA and JRTC, and then finally, like I said, in the summer of 2021, taking on that CTE Courtyard. It's again going to be disruptive. We're working closely with Adam about what that looks like. Going to be very active construction through to August 1. August 1, we'll start to get ready for folks to come back. Still be a construction site though. We'll work side by side through the school year and then have a big summer construction next year. Sheffield is still plugging along. We had an interesting one today. We finally got our public hearing from the city of Dallas. They did a WebEx. Obviously we've been doing ours for about 2 months now. All the invites went out. Everything was good. We didn't present, but the whole meeting went about 4 hours until somebody realized that the public link was broken, and we got delayed another 2 weeks. So they will double stack the May 21 agenda with everything that was for today and everything that was due on 21. Our consultants still feel that our final zoning hearing will still hold. We're working with our councilwoman there, but we won't be through that permitting process until August. Now we can obviously start demo, site grading, things like that. So we will be looking at opportunities to do as much work as we can, so that as soon as those permits are released, we are in full construction mode to have our building built by July. Quick just overview. You have the gym, cafeteria. We had an exciting opportunity here. We actually did a public meeting via WebEx, both in English and Spanish, to the community. It was a pretty good turnout. We also recorded it and made it available on our website. I just want to give everybody here a quick preview of what we discussed there, just a quick overview of the building. You have the gym cafeteria here, which will act as the storm shelter, and that same storm shelter requirement that we built at Landry. Center of the building, we have our admin and library. Over in that first orange sector there, you have kinder and first grade together, kind of with their outdoor learning space there. Then these 2 classroom wings, double storied, with 4th and 5th on one and 2nd and 3rd on the other, all around this magnificent courtyard, creating that indoor-outdoor learning opportunity. A quick look at the front door. We have our canopy to give our street presence and emphasis to welcome folks in. Over in the courtyard, you can see the art room, the library, and the cafeteria all start to spill out into the space. A little bit of artificial turf there, introduce some trees, again, create this space where kids can come out, meet the elements, see the rain, see the sunshine, get all the good things that they need to get. Because I said that 2020 and 2021 were going to be the death of me, we are in full design for Series 2, which is very similar type of work. Our high school there is Newman Smith. Perry is our big middle school. Blaylock and Long get some minor renovations, and there's about 6 elementaries. And of course, this Sandridge Stadium also gets some upgrades. We are well into the design. Our design team, LPA, is engaged Newman Smith doing student surveys and staff surveys, understanding who they are, what their culture is, understanding their CTE paths and all the impact of that. Very exciting stuff going on with the construction pathway and a tie into P-Tech there potentially as well. Perry was phenomenal. I've got to give a big shout out to Adam. He put together some kids who came on and did a Zoom meeting with VLK, and we got to ask them about how they learn and where they enjoy learning and what their favorite projects are, and they blew us away. The quality of feedback that they brought to the table, just it's going to set that project apart from anything else that we've done. Elementary schools, these are all very similar to McCoy, smaller packages, a lot of roof, a lot of mechanical. We have our engineering teams getting those nuts and bolts ironed out. Once we get the necessities out the way, then we'll see, just like we did at McCoy, how much of the more fun things we can engage with, and we'll be doing that. That wraps the construction update for today.
Thank you, Mr. Mulroney. Board members, are there any questions?
Ms. Klein, I do.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Malcolm. Do you need a drink of water or? No, that was extensive and informative. I would just want to comment that I really, really like the transaction window that y'all are incorporating. I think that's a really great add to the facilities. So I really like that a lot. And then on the redo of the lighting and the HVAC at administration building, do y'all have rough analysis on what our operational savings is going to be when that's all in place?
We don't, but I can certainly get you that. I'll reach out to EMA.
But there is a savings. I mean, obviously, because more efficient systems and the lights. I mean, we are going to recognize some savings there.
Substantial. I can just tell you one of the big risks was the head-in electrical, because this building's a little bit older, and our reduction in energy use actually required less head-in electricity for the building.
Okay, well then that's good.
It's big.
On the event center, on the do y'all have any updates or information, or I guess an idea on when that facility would be available with or without food, or for internal or external use of the event space?
Yes.
And a process for doing that.
Right. The first year, we're going to keep it to CFB only. Let us get our calendar set, kind of see how we do and things like that. That'll also give us a chance to bring the CTE program on board and see its interaction and iron out things like, how do we work with outside vendors? Do we allow them to use parts of the kitchen or not? Things like that. So that first year is really going to be CFB. We're looking at some events in late June, early July, just kind of soft opening type internal training events. Really going to be looking for that back to school window into September. Assuming everything there goes well, then we'll bring a recommendation on how we want to reach out to outside groups.
Okay, so it's still kind of rough depending what happens for the rest of the month for internal, and I was referencing internal as well. Okay, good. And then for Series 2 bond on those items, and I know it's in the beginning of kind of the conceptual design phase, but when do you expect kind of the first opportunity for the board to see some conceptual thoughts or rough drawings, not to set anything? I know how it works with conceptual. People get something stuck in their head. I got it. But and really I'm focused on the standard stadium and the natatorium, what those improvements, are going to be, especially since that facility has a long list of things. So I'm just looking for the first opportunity that we would have to see that.
Correct. And Sandridge, I'll be honest, some of the challenges that we have with both Perry and with Vivian Field, Perry and Smith, is going all the way back and setting some of those high school standards. Same way that we did with New Sheffield, where we set the elementary bar off with those projects. So we're not going to see much until the other side of July as far as that goes, because a lot of it's going to be that high level standards, ed spec type of stuff. Same schedule on the stadium. Like you said, the list is long and the dollars are short. So we're going to go back and do a full evaluation and come back. I would expect something the other side of July.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And then, I didn't write it down. Those other plans, some of the things that you were walking through, especially with the adjustments on Turner in the CTE and those spaces. I want to confirm that our plans and those designs and plans are coordinated with our with security, with Mr. De La Rosa and security on how that would work and potential, risk and design fixes to be proactive on that. I'm confident you're doing that, but I just really want the clarification.
Every day. True North is our consultant both on our technology and on security, so we've got a nice cohesion between our policy procedures and our construction procedures.
Okay.
I want to say we're putting in almost 180, it might be slightly more than 180 cameras in the Turner package, as well as comprehensive access controls, so that we have that multitude of different doors and things like that. We'll have a single brain. That was a big part of the knock upgrade. A single brain that can see both the cameras and doors at the same time.
Okay. So his any comments or comments that he has are incorporated into our design efforts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's it. Really impressive. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Board members, any other questions?
Ms. Klein, I have a question for Mr. Mulroney as well. So you had mentioned that for the high schools minus Turner, they would be ready for the security vestibules by August. Do you have any time estimate on Turner's security vestibule?
August as well.
Oh, excellent. Okay, because that would be a question of they all got it and Turner didn't. So okay, the plan would be
No.
they would get it as well.
It's just Turner's gone through it's in the 2018 bond pack, and the other one is funded out of some residual bond funds that we have. I believe they owe 3 funds.
Okay, so all 4 traditional high schools will have the security vestibules ready to go in August.
Yes, ma'am.
That is excellent. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mulroney, I had a question about classrooms during construction. You kind of briefly alluded to it, but like at Vivian Field and Turner, we're not going to need any portables or anything?
Not at Turner. Turner has the capacity, plus the high school kind of has that little bit more tolerance to the system. Vivian Field, we are going to need between 12 and 18 portables. We're working with Jackson on layouts and opportunities. That site's pretty tight when it comes to construction, both for laydown area and for portables. So we're working through with Chad right now on what that's going to look like.
And could you possibly pull up the Sheffield plan?
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Scott, could I have projection? Thank you.
So I was curious about entrances and security. Ms. Hrabacek's question made me kind of think back to this layout. So between the 4th and 5th grade building and the 1st grade, is there some control of access at all?
Yes, it's at the perimeter here. So starting, I'm not sure, can you see my mouse on the recording or?
I see it down on the bottom left.
Yep.
Is that
Perfect. So from that corner to the property fence, there will be a secure gate, this fence with a gate for fire lane access. There's privacy fence all the way around and then comes all the way back to the kinder section. So what we have done is treated this as the secure zone in that area.
The other question I had is if it's raining, what is the process to get from admin to the 4th and 5th?
There is a corridor that you can't see it because the gym's too tall, but right along the face of the gym, there's a corridor that connects back to admin, internal corridor.
Cool. I appreciate the information. And, those were just some questions I had.
Absolutely.
Board members, any other questions? If not, we really appreciate the update, Mr. Mulroney. And people can contact you if they think of questions later.
Absolutely, it's what we do every day.
So item 5C, discuss the current board vacancy. At our last meeting in May, the first week of May, we talked about having this discussion. The board member Valenzuela resigned from the board on December 5th, 2019. And I'm just going to place it out there and see if there's a interest in interviewing candidates or finding someone to appoint now that we've learned more about COVID-19. So hearing nothing, we may move on to, oh, okay, go ahead, Randy, sorry.
I'm not sure what happened. My screen suddenly says, thanks for using Cisco WebEx. You can hear me though.
We can hear you.
Okay, well, I had actually mentioned this at the last meeting. It was something that came to my mind as we were looking at the change and delay because of COVID and changing the election, which would have occurred this past week and moving it to November. I think that from my perspective, I wanted people to know that we are aware and we're on top of things related to election and board procedure and policies. We will still be barely, but we will still be within the 1 year time frame, even with the November election process. And of course, there are issues with waivers possible because of the pandemic situation. In just visiting among board as we talked about this coming out of the meeting and have just had minor really conversations per se, in talking with Dr. Chapman and just kind of getting a feedback and feel for what's happening in the district, I think my thought after we've thought it through, and I appreciate board members thinking it through with us all, our process probably works fine to keep the status quo and to not bring something else to the plate of any of our admin or to the district through some sort of an interview process or whatever. And by the time we could complete a process, we would actually be to the place that if we were to make an appointment, it would literally be for about a month to 6 weeks. And so I think that probably my thought process after we've been through the whole thing is that it makes the most sense for us to stay the course as we are. And in November, the community will elect new board members and we will go forward. Does that summarize what others are thinking?
Thank you, Mr. Shackman. Ms. Herbacek?
I agree. When we had previously discussed this, it was really a timing issue, and then we got into the situation that we're in now. And while it is a board, a school board position, school board role, there still is quite a bit of effort from administration and staff, and quite frankly with Dr. Chapman on getting a new school board member up to speed. And my preference is that Dr. Chapman and staff continue to keep their sole focus on our kids, and like Randy said, we'll keep the board as is for right now. I agree.
I appreciate y'all's discussion and input. Anybody else? With that, well, thank you very much. And we'll move on to item number 6. We didn't have any items pulled from consent, so we'll go to 6B. which is consider approval of Collaborative Vision 2030. Dr. Chapman?
Yes, ma'am. Back in September of 2019, the Board of Trustees set new vision, mission, goals, and priorities for the district. Then 64 members across the community sat each month for 3 hours under the facilitation of Lizzie Asbury to walk through to develop a 10-year plan, the Collaborative Vision 2030. And Lizzie, I believe you're on. If you have any questions for Dr. Asbury as they walk through this process, but here's the thing that I want to say. We had a third party to do the facilitation, and the administration really just sat back and watched. We were vulnerable to the community, but it's also so important to get the individual's perspective and their wants and their needs as we move this district forward. Now, was administration available to answer questions? Absolutely. Did we sit down and put a framework together and say, here's what we're looking for and here's what we want? Not at all. They did all of the work and did an exceptional job putting this together. The Board of Trustees heard the presentation on April 2nd at the last board meeting, and we took the comments that board members had made to the plan and added those items into the plan, and the final plan, I gave that to the board a couple of weeks ago. So if you have any questions, comments, the person that put in so much time and effort and actually worked with the committee members was Dr. Asbury. If they had questions, they contacted her directly. We wanted to try to not separate the administration, but we did want to separate the administration. We wanted this to be the CFB, the Carrollton-Farmers branch, community as a whole, putting this vision as we move forward, and they did a phenomenal job with it.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. We have the recommendation of the superintendent that the Board of Trustees approve this Collaborative Vision 2030 plan as presented. Do we have any action? Ms. Hrabacek?
I move that we approve the Collaborative Vision 2030 plan as presented.
We have a motion by Ms. Hrabacek. Do we have a second? Mr. Matthews, was that your hand up? Thank you. So we have a motion by Ms. Hrabacek, and part of my problem with Zoom is I can't see the whole board, the one I'm looking at. And sometimes they don't all show up on the other one either. So if you make noise, it might be helpful also. Thank you. So we have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
Klein, I do. Sarah.
Please go ahead.
So I want to thank the committee as well, and I believe I would speak for the rest of the board. After our detailed review and digging into that vision and into that document, it was apparent that there was a lot of effort and thoughtful purpose, I think, a purposeful document put together. And, I know I submitted a long list of questions and comments for some of what I wanted clarified. And I appreciate, the effort, Dr. Asbury, of taking that on and getting back, and as well as for the other board members. What I do want to make sure is I want to confirm that the entire intent of this document is to set our focus and guide us through, our future and taking us to the next step based on what our community sets as priorities and focus and help us decide that. But I also want to make sure that we have a plan in place for reviewing that document, especially because our world has changed now. We might have some different focuses, and that we do have that review and analysis, what's working, what's not, what do we additionally need to focus on, is incorporated into our board calendar, and then subsequent effort by a committee or whoever it needs to be to ensure that's continuously reviewed and updated to maintain our directed focus.
Mrs. Hrabacek, this is Lizzie Asbury. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Yes, what I call those are milestone meetings, and we do plan on convening, whether it be the large group again or representatives from each table who do get feedback from their focus area, their priority focus area. But yes, that's the whole purpose of this. You know, that's why I like to stay away from calling it a plan, because I feel like when it's a plan, it feels like something's printed and put in a book. But this is something that will be attended to and shifted and adjusted. I always say you assess, or you measure, you know, you assess and you monitor, and that's what we're going to do with this. And I have not detailed that with Dr. Chapman yet, since we are just now bringing this to the fact of approval. But there is a plan in place that I will sit down and talk to him and Mr. Marsh and Dr. West about, and make sure that they are aware of how that looks and what the district's response will be to doing all of that together.
Okay, great. And I completely understand that our original presentation was going to be made by the committee, and just things changed, so we didn't have the benefit of hearing from them, you know, in a full presentation to the board. But I'd like to ask that that feedback and their thoughts on those milestones as presentation to the board from them, you know, is incorporated into those presentations, so that we do have that benefit. These were their ideas. I want to hear what they have to say about it.
Totally understandable. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other comments, discussion? Appreciate Dr. Asbury's work with the team. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That is unanimous. So we will move on with our, so it's not a plan. What is it, Dr. Asbury?
It's a collaborative vision.
So it's not concrete, just fluid.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So item 6C, consider approval of House Bill 3 board goals, early literacy plan, math plan, and CCMR plan.
Yes, ma'am. The Board of Trustees heard the three plans on April 22nd when Dr. Bryce and Dr. Asbury presented to the board during a work study. And again, the same thing happened with the early literacy plan. There was a team of CFB staff members that worked collaboratively together. With the math plan, the same thing, CCMR, to where they put steps and processes in place that sets a benchmark and or timelines for the board as well as the superintendent, that we can meet these needs and these obligations. And so, Dr. Asbury, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, so we brought forth to you the recommendations for early math, early literacy, and CCMR. As Dr. Chapman said, there's a lot of thought process that went into this. We started this even in the late fall before any of this occurred. And because of all the work that had been put into it and the time that had been spent with the stakeholders, we felt it was a good idea to continue. And so the work continued, and the recommended goals had already really been established prior to the spring break time. And so what we did then was just get together and as leaders, and also with Dr. West's help as she had come on board, to just solidify all of that and make sure that we were putting forth really good targets and progress measurements for CFB, so that the district can stay competitive and can do what's best for students.
Board members, we heard a lot about this on April 22nd. So I guess, first of all, I'd like to get a motion and a second for the approval of House Bill 3 board goals, early literacy plan, math plan, and CCMR plan, and we'll have some more discussion. Is there any action? Mr. Shackman?
Ms. Klein, I would like to make a motion that we accept the HB3 plans for early literacy for math and for CCMR as presented.
Thank you. And a second by Mr. Ramos. So is there any discussion? Mr. Shackman?
Ms. Klein, I'd just like to say thank you to those who have worked so diligently on these. I'm very excited that this feels like for the first time since I've been a part of this board, that we have the concrete goals and plans and measurable processes to keep track and see how we're doing, especially in the area of special ed. Some of the growth increases and the percentages are pretty aggressive, but we've defined what is important and we've got a way to measure the progress. And my congratulations to all who've worked on that and been a part of putting it together. And I believe it is a huge step in moving this district forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see any other comments, so we'll go ahead. All those in favor? Any opposed? Because that looks unanimous also. Thank you for that. It brings us to agenda item number 7, comments from board members regarding posted agenda items. It may not be posted except for behind Ms. Derrick's head. Ms. Derrick, would you like to tell us about?
How did you know? So it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I would be remiss if I did not mention that we miss all of our teachers and staff dearly. The Derrick household especially misses our teachers, and so we have made a poster that the girls propped behind me that we were hoping would be in view all night, but it did not turn out that way. But this is from the Derrick girls to everyone in CFB. Happy Teacher Appreciation Week, and we love all of you and miss you and can't wait to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Derrick. Other board members, do you have any comments you wish to make at this time? Well, ladies and gentlemen, hearing none, seeing none, we've reached the end of our agenda and we are adjourned at 9:23 p.m. Stay safe.